students! Last week we looked at the beginning of the Roman Empire. This week we will stay in the Roman Empire, but we're going to be looking at the height or the flourishing at the greatest expanse of the empire, and we're going to see how the empire changes, adapts, evolves, and then eventually collapses this week. Are you ready? Okay. We're going to start with the height of the Roman Empire, or as many historians refer to it, the time of the, quote, 5 good emperors. In this time period of the 5 good emperors, we call it that because, well, we had a series of 5 really good emperors, one right after the other. And during that time, we saw this expanse of the empire and art and monuments and architecture. In terms of the time period, the 5 good emperors, they rule from 96 CE to 180 CE, so a little over 100 years in these 5 good emperors. The end of the reign of the 5 good emperors comes with the death of the last of the 5, Marcus Aurelius. Now, for this class, we won't be getting into a lot of the specifics about the emperors. In fact, we're only going to look at the second to the third and the fifth of the 5 good emperors. If this was a specifically history of the Western world, then we would get into more of the specific details about each of these 5 good emperors. But for our art history class, we're going to look simply at the highlights. Remember that from our first week of class. We'll look at the highlights and the highlights of the art, and that includes art from the second, the third, and the fifth of the 5 good emperors. I say this now because as you start to write your notes and you're like, wait a minute, Ms. Cortez only talked about 3 of the 5. Did I miss something? I don't want you to think like you missed something. You didn't. We're just focusing on the second, the third, and the fifth of the 5 good emperors. So who were these 5 good emperors? Well, the first is Nerva. Second is Trajan. Third is Hadrian. Fourth is Antoninus Pius. And then fifth is Marcus Aurelius. We're not going to look at Nerva. We're not going to look at Antoninus Pius. We will look at Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius. One thing that we need to understand about these 5 good emperors is that they were appointed into these roles. They were not inherited. Each of these emperors was selected by the previous emperor because of their ability to lead, their competency, their strength, and each of these 5 emperors also had military experience. And so they have experience with larger troops, and they have proven themselves to the Roman people, and it really does serve that same difficult identity of being a Roman, right? That you need to be a warrior, but you also need to be a peacekeeper and a farmer. And so in these 5 good emperors, we see that duality. They have their past as generals in the army, and they have their present as rulers of this empire. So let's just summarize. We're looking at the 5 good emperors, but we're not looking at Nerva, and we're not looking at Antoninus Pius. We're going to look at Nerva's successor first, who was Trajan. Trajan was a general in the army, and under the rule of Trajan, or I should say, under the leadership of Trajan as general, the Romans picked up a massive chunk of land and added it to the empire. Here we go. One of the reasons why this is referred to as the height of the Roman Empire is because it is at its greatest expanse. It stretches from England down to Egypt, from Syria across to Spain. And think about this territory. It stretches across 3 continents: the North African coast, most of Europe, and portions of Western Asia. Now, I've highlighted here the area that Trajan added in. It was referred to as Dacia at that time. It now is the territory we refer to as Romania. And here's a portrait of Trajan, and it really helped win his support when he became emperor, because people were so thankful in his bringing in this territory. The territory of Romania had been hotly contested, not hotly contested, that seems to minimize it, had been a difficult border with lots of violent battles and fighting. The Romans wanted this territory from the Germanic tribes because of its massive amount of forests, timber, and, well, remember the duality of being a Roman. You need to take over, you need to overthrow in order to get in more loot, get in more raw materials, get in more slave labor, and that's what happened when Trajan brought in Dacia. So the people of Rome celebrated Trajan for bringing in Dacia. I've also included here his name, Emperor Oppius Trajan, because remember the Romans, they will put the family name first. So it's Emperor Oppius Trajan. So his name is Trajan, and we'll call him Emperor Trajan, but his family name is Oppius. The reason I bring this up is because one of our artworks is going to be named after his family name, Oppius. Make sense? Okay.